Hi, welcome. We're going to go over homework 14. So I'm going to first talk about the things we're going to need. So we're going to copy a segment, an angle, and bisect a segment. That's what we did in class today. If you have a compass at home, terrific. That's going to be great. If not, you can usually use a paper clip, and I'll show you how to do that, although it's hard for me to do if I'm holding the phone at the same time, but I'll do my best. Also, be sure to use your notes and or the textbook. If you haven't checked one out, you can check one out. And you can also go online to Pearson, and that's at the bottom of your worksheet, and I think you can look up a textbook, okay? But I took the time, and I'm going to say this more than once, but I took the time to kind of write out the steps. These are the exact same ones in the book. But some kids are like, can you kind of summarize the little tips you talked about in class? So if you want to pause the video and jot these down, that might be helpful. Okay? All right, welcome back if you paused it. Now let's go ahead and copy this segment. Step 1, it says draw a long line with a straight edge. Okay, so if I'm going to copy this segment, it helps people's eyes. You don't have to, but it helps people's eyes if I copy this segment kind of parallel to that because it doesn't look so ugly. Okay, so I'm just going to make a long line, doesn't matter where. Step 2, mark a random point M. Okay, so a lot of kids like to put it right below this point. It doesn't matter where, but I will put it below this point. So that's M. Okay, so this is kind of a waist over there. But again, the important part is that it's longer because you're going to kind of measure it off. Okay? So I like to think of it as if I was doing a craft project or something like that, and this was a piece of ribbon that I wanted to cut, I would maybe pull off a longer piece of ribbon before I copy this over because I want to make sure that I didn't make that too short. So that's hopefully a good analogy. Okay. Now, here, I go to the next step in my book. So the next step we talked about, open the compass to measure the length of the line segment to be copied. So technically we're not measuring it with a ruler or anything, but that's what we're doing. So we're going to open this, and so that we're going to go, how big is this line segment? It's exactly that big. So place the ends on G and H. Maybe that's off a little bit. Okay. Step 3. Copy over the length, making sure the compass is open that amount, and make an arc. Mark that intersection in. Okay, so I have this length, and I'm just going to copy it over here. So again, like we talked about today, you kind of press down there, and you make an arc. Okay. Now it's kind of hard to use a paper clip. So you do kind of have to pretend, but again, you're just kind of going, okay, if I had something that could measure lines about this far, I'm kind of pretending with my finger about that far, and you want your paper to look like that. Cool. And then we said, I made a little arc here, and I'm going to call that intersection in. So what have I done here? Well, essentially, this line is copied to this line. So you're supposed to kind of pretend that this would be ignored. The line segment MN should be the same length. Now I'm going to do it again for PQ. You probably don't need me to, but I'll do it anyway. So I'm just going to use step 1. It says draw along a line with a line segment. Whoop. Okay, and just make sure it's nice and long. Now it says mark a random point M. Most people like to put it pretty close to where that is. So I'm going to call that M. Beautiful. Step 2, open the compass to measure the length of the line segment that we're going to be copying over. So a compass makes circles, but also kind of is a copier of lengths. It's like, okay, how long is this? About that long. Okay, so we're now going to go over here. Step 3, copy over the length, making sure the compass didn't move. That's the same amount of openness. We're going to make an arc. Just going to make a little trace there. Then we're going to mark that intersection N. And I've done it again. All I've done is I've copied this segment over to a new segment. I copied this segment over here to a new location, and they should match using those steps. Beautiful. Terrific job. If this is frustrating, you're doing everything right. This is not easy. It looks far easier than it truly is. Now let's practice copying angles. So I wrote out the steps, and again, it is in our textbook, and we did practice in class, but some students like it for me to write out the steps in my own words, because that helps students. I don't know. Okay, so example 2 says, step 1, make a point X and draw a ray with a straight edge. Okay, so here's my angle, and I'm just supposed to it feels random. But I'm gonna go down here, make a point X, so I kind of want to copy this angle down there. So I'm gonna call that X, and I just make one of the rays. I don't think it matters if I do this one or this one, it doesn't matter. So I'm just gonna kind of do this one, I guess. So there's a ray X. Beautiful. Cool. Now, step 2, it says, make an arc with the center at the angle, making sure it touches both rays. After I do that, I'm going to call it point B and C. Okay, so let's try to do that. Make an arc at my angle, so the angle I'm copying is D. Make an arc at my angle, and when I make one, I got to try to make sure it crosses both. Cool? Now you might be thinking, well, how could I maybe have used a paper clip to do that? So this could be a compass in a weird way. You could think of this as the holder downer pencil. And I can't do this with 2 hands. Look, I can't videotape at the same time. I'm gonna try. And then here, see how my paper clip is being used as a compass. Oh, it's so cool. Okay. So if you don't have a compass, you can use a paper clip. The only thing is you got to make sure that it touches it twice. So you may have to use a straight edge to kind of extend these lines if you're using a big paper clip, or just you can use the inside of the paper clip or the outside of the paper clip, depending on what size of an arc you want. Okay, beautiful. So we made an arc that's centered at that angle. We had to make sure it touches both, which it did, and we're supposed to call this B and C. So it's a beautiful thing. Now, I'm supposed to keep the arc the same openness. So whether you used a paper clip or this, I kind of used both, but I'm gonna go back here, just making sure it's the same openness. This was the arc I made, the circle, okay? Now, step 3, keeping the compass the same openness and make the same arc at point X. When I do that, I'm gonna name the intersection Y. Okay, so let's do that. Same openness, I'm gonna go here to X, make the same arc. So this arc, I'm copying right there. Beautiful, really cool, okay, loving it. And I marked the intersection Y. Now let's see what comes next. Now, changing the openness of your compass, put the compass points at B and C. Okay. So I'm changing my compass points, and this is where this doesn't work too good, but it might help you. It might help you kind of make some arcs and pretend. But again, I'm supposed to mimic this openness. Okay. Now changing the openness of my compass, put the compass points at B and C. Done. That's all they wanted me to do at step 4. Just do that. Okay. Now, last step, it says, keeping this compass the same openness, make an arc from point Y and name that Z. Okay. Name the arc, make an arc at Y. Okay, so there's Y. Same openness, right? Make an arc at Y and call that Z. Now there's one more part of that last step, but I wanted to do this part first. Okay, did that. Beautiful. And then the very last thing it says, draw the line XZ using a straight edge. Okay, draw the line XZ. So let's do that. These are the steps that are in your textbook, and they're pretty much the same steps I've seen in geometry the last few years. Okay, now I'm gonna mimic those same 5 steps. I'm gonna do it again with a different size angle. And I'm still doing the same thing. I'm copying the angle. So notice this angle looks pretty close to that one. Mission accomplished. Okay, this one. So step 1 was randomly go down here and pick a point X. Also, go ahead and mimic one of these lines. So I'm gonna mimic this line right here. I think maybe I put that too close though, so oops. I'm thinking maybe, remember I'm gonna copy this angle down here somewhere. So I need to give myself enough room. Okay, so maybe I need a better pick for X. Okay, so there's my point X. And step 1 says make a point X and draw a ray with a straight edge. So since this ray is kind of going that way, it helps students, you don't have to, but it helps students if I kind of mimic the same directions because it helps them see a little bit better. Okay, step 2, make an arc with the center at the angle, making sure it touches both rays. Okay, so I just have to make this not too big so that when I make an arc, it touches both rays. Okay. After I do that, still part of step 2, I want to call this B and C. So I've made an arc, making sure it touches both rays, and called it B and C. Next, keep the compass the same openness and make the same arc at X. Okay, so making it, not adjusting the openness, making the same arc X. Okay, there it is. Now I also have to make that intersection Y. Cool. Okay. Again, I'm still following these same steps. So if you want to freeze the video and jot these down somewhere, that's okay, but you don't have to. Last one, it says, now changing the openness, put the compass points at B and C. Okay. So now changing the openness, put the points at B and C. Okay. And then last step, go to Y and make a little arc. So it's almost as if we've copied over this distance right here. Made an arc there. I'm supposed to call this intersection Z. And last but not least, just like I did here, I'm supposed to make a straight line at X, Z. Okay. It's not perfect, but it looks like this angle is pretty close to this angle, pretty much the same size. Thanks for joining us. Check out the next part of the video for the rest of the sheet.